Hi, nobody. Today I will be talking about something that metalheads usually don't really enjoy talking about in a positive manner, at least. Um, Usually they are really offended by it or they hate that you brought that up, but they won't shut up about it. They will complain, they will insult and be pretty disrespectful towards certain groups of people and certain music styles and certain life choices. Um, and this is the influence of punk music and hardcore music in metal and the influence of metal in punk and hardcore music. Now, punk and metal have kind of always had a symbiosis from the really early beginnings. There's except maybe for um, the early metal bands, they were not really influenced by punk, and vice versa probably. But at least from the 70s onwards, mid 70s onwards, there's no way to say seriously and unironically that there are no shared influences. For starters, we can begin with post-punk. If you listen to early Bauhaus, who are, for those of you that don't know, considered to be the creators of gothic rock, so they are a post-punk band. If you listen to some of their riffs and melodies, they clearly have an influence from Black Sabbath. No doubt about it. If you listen to both bands, then probably you made the link by yourselves. If you don't, or if you didn't make that link, listen to some of their songs, and probably you will start to see where I'm getting at. Besides post-punk and gothic rock, punk bands from the late 70s and the early 80s started to have more aggressive sound, faster drumming, screamed vocals, and that interested, obviously, some bands that, well, made metal music. So we have bands like Venom, we have every thrash metal band ever to exist that took from punk music and mixed it with speed metal, which was already sort of influenced by punk music, and boom, they create thrash metal. Except for Venom, they were their own thing, kind of. A speed metal band with lots of punk influences and a bit darker. But thrash metal is undoubtedly punk. Without hardcore punk music, thrash would not exist, and without thrash, pretty much every genre outside of traditional doom and some power metal and not much else wouldn't exist. Death metal comes from thrash, so it has hardcore influences, and lots of hardcore bands from a certain point onwards have thrash metal and groove metal, and like Hatebreed, for example, and thrash, for example, we could say DRI. They were originally a punk band. Same could be said with death metal. Lots of, well, beat down hardcore is essentially death metal with already metal influenced hardcore. Same goes, for example, with grindcore. Grindcore would not exist without punk, obviously. Obviously. You take death metal, which is already a derivation from thrash metal, which comes from punk, and then you add more punk to the mix, and you have grindcore. And there you go. Grindcore, being one of the most extreme metal genres, takes inspiration mostly on punk music. Same goes for melodic death metal, for example. Melodic death metal, especially Swedish, the Swedish variant. I will talk about melodic death metal someday. I have quite a bit prepared for that. It's almost ready, but especially the Swedish variant of melodic death metal is very much influenced by punk and hardcore, because Swedish hardcore was already a big thing in the alternative community there, and it's relatively close to metal if you listen to all the power violence and D-beat bands that come out of Sweden. They are extreme. Some even have growls and typical metal, extreme metal vocals with their own sort of punk breed. Also, melodic death metal, especially its more traditional Swedish variants, has lots of influences from specifically thrash metal. Also, the well-known string skipping riff used in melodic death metal and metalcore comes from thrash and speed metal specifically. So there you go. Melodic death metal comes from punk as well. Same goes for metalcore. People hate metalcore in the metal community sometimes, but it's a metal genre. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't know why I'm sorry. I like metalcore. Metalcore is essentially Swedish melodic death metal with especially taking the thrash influence and the vocals, and we add more hardcore, more on the breed of bands like Hatebreed or Converge, and things evolve to melodic metalcore, which is melodic death metal with metalcore. And then we have groove metal also. Groove metal comes from thrash metal. Thrash metal comes from punk, hardcore. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. I will put some stuff in the description. I will put links to albums and bands and songs that have a pretty obvious interbreeding of punk and hardcore and gothic rock, straight up gothic rock. I'm not talking about gothic metal or alternative rock with gothic tendencies. That's not a subject. Maybe I will talk about it, but yeah, that's kind of it. I just wanted to talk about this. Bye.